Hi, Jenna. Miss King. How are you?
How's it going? Oops, I don't know why I'm a hot mess here. I got my name all wrong. I got everything disastrous here.
That's fine.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Yeah. I guess we'll start like very soon.
No problem. I just figured I'd be early.
Oh yeah, no, that's perfect.
I didn't want to cross your mother by missing anything. How was the first session?
Well, this is the. Oh, do you mean? Oh, yeah, that's going really great. I'm not. I was in I peeked in for like a second, but.
Okay, that was like the keynote, right?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
I love you.
So you're gonna let in the other presenters, and then you let the people in. Is that how it works?
Yeah. Lovey's in here, so I'm just gonna introduce myself. This is applying confidently, and then I'll let you guys take away. And then after about 20 minutes, just because this is like the basic Zoom, so we only have 40 minutes.
Right.
We're just gonna at 20 minutes, I'm just gonna ask for questions and everything, and then we're just, we're trying to keep it as a really tight schedule.
Perfect. That sounds great. Hi, Lovey.
Hi, how's it going?
How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good. Hey, Chaz, can you hear a lot of background noise? I have the windows open, but if you can hear too many birds or too much traffic, I can close the windows.
Oh, no, it sounds fine.
Okay. All right. Good. I didn't want you to be picking up all the traffic noise.
That's fine. Is Dave Buchwald? He's not. He doesn't say that he's in the.
Hang on. Let's send a text. I think we're in a group text, aren't we, Lovey?
Yes, we are.
I'll send one and just say, Dave, are you joining?
Yeah, I don't know.
Do you have the option to call in on your Zoom, or are you on your computer audio?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm on my computer.
Okay. I know sometimes they give you the option to call in with your phone as well, so you have.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to just text Dave. Are you logging in? I think we are about to start. How's that? Okay.
I think my mom's just wrapping up right now with
the other one. Okay. Oh, look at the dog. So cute. Who's that?
That's Apollo.
Hi, Apollo. I don't know if I'm expecting a response or something. I'm glad you moved. I can see you better now.
The lighting was I was in this.
Yeah, the lighting really does matter with Zoom. I feel like some days I'm I can't. I interviewed someone yesterday and I literally could see a shadow of them, and I was like, "Are you there? I can't tell."
Yeah, I think I'm in a good spot now.
Okay. Oh, he says he's still in the other room now.
There you go. I just admitted him.
Okay.
Hey,
hi, Dave.
Hi, Chaz. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Okay, I'm doing great. So, okay, cool. I think my mom, literally, I think she just wrapped up with that keynote. So we should have, we got people.
Great.
Sounds great.
Who will introduce themselves first?
Yeah. I'm just gonna be I'll introduce myself. This is applying confidently. Thank you for coming, and then I'm just gonna give it right to you guys. Let you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay, Lovey, you kick it off, and then Dave can go, and then I'll go.
Of course.
ABK. I'm going with order of our last initials.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we have people in here. Okay. I'm going to get started, and as people join in, I will be admitting people. So, hi, everybody. My name is Chaz. I'm Gina's son. I go to Riverdale Country School. I'm a 10th grader going into 11th grade next year. Thank you so much for coming. So this session is applying confidently, and that's pretty much it. So I'm just really going to give it away to our speakers and let them introduce themselves and get started.
Sure. Hi, my name is Lovey. I am the co-founder of Parent to One Black. We are a community space that helps Black and Brown parents to build up their families, whether it's through affirmations, mental health, navigating the independent school process. I'm a mom of 4 boys, married, and my oldest son, he attends Independent Day Middle School. And he was just accepted maybe less than 2 weeks ago to a prep program that Oliver Scholars that helps kids, Black and Brown students, also get into prep, into independent private schools. So we're excited about that. And I'm definitely looking forward to engaging with everyone and telling everybody about the process that we use, the strategies that we use. I did a lot of co-designing, research, and just figuring out a system that worked for us. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hey everybody, I'm Dave Buckwild. I'm Director of Admissions and Enrollment Management at Avenues The World School. We're located on the High Line in West Chelsea. We're a comprehensive school, so we go from a toddler program right up through high school. We are a new school, so we just had our 5th graduating senior class. Maybe I'll stop there, but just a little bit about me. I came in as the Director of Admissions a little under 2 years ago. I'd spent most of my career in college admissions, so I was almost always a New Yorker. I had a little time up in Lewiston, Maine, but otherwise had spent a lot of my career in Morningside Heights at Columbia and in the undergraduate admissions office there. And that's where I came from when I arrived downtown in West Chelsea.
Great. Hi, everyone. My name is Jenna King. I am the Director of Admission and Enrollment at Riverdale Country School, where Chaz goes to school. This is my 16th year at the school, which is crazy. It's gone by so fast. And it's been great. I've been in admissions for 15 of those years. I've also taught and coached and had a bunch of other roles at the school. One of the ones that I still have held on to outside of the admission work is that I do run our upper school advisor program, which is great because that gives me a chance to keep an eye on kids after they've enrolled and ensure that they are connecting to the community and that they have lots of different folks looking out for them and that I can kind of monitor their progress through their upper school experience. I do oversee admissions pre-K through 12th grade. I'm also the parent of 3 kids at the school. I have a 4th grade daughter who's been at Riverdale since pre-K and twin 2nd grade sons who have also been at the school since pre-K. Riverdale Country School is a school of about 1,200 students located in the Riverdale section of the Bronx on 2 different campuses where we have our lower school close down by Wave Hill, right by the river, and then our Hill campus, which is actually where I live, which is about a mile away. And we're kind of one of the 3 hill schools right up here, neighboring Horace Mann and Fieldston, which I believe you'll get a chance to meet later on at the fair today. Lovey, do you want to start and tell us your story a little bit? Should we go in order again to kind of do some opening remarks and then we can take some questions? And I know Chaz will prompt us to do that. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Lovey.
Okay, so I'll dig a little further into like our history and how we got all the way up to where we are with my oldest son and I. He's very studious. He's always been someone that has taken school pretty seriously, loved reading books and stuff like that. And I've always been someone that has looked for new opportunities for my children, whether it was a new extracurricular activity or trying out a different sport, or if there was a STEM program that I knew my son, he liked science, I would always research those type of things. And initially going through the middle school process, my son was in charter school. He went to Kip Academy and he was doing great there. There was nothing wrong or alarming or anything like that. But again, I'm always looking for different resources and opportunities. So when I stumbled upon I wasn't even really aware of independent schools at back at that time. It was probably like 6 or 7 years ago. maybe less than that. But when I came across it, I started doing research, and I realized that I reached out to a few of my friends and family. No one knew about independent day schools. And I was like, let me do a little more research. So we went through the process of, it was Jackson Academy. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but they're located in New York City. Excellent all boys school, and he is thriving incredibly there. But when we first started and was going through the process, I realized that there just wasn't enough information that I was able to find. So I had to research school, like independent schools and boarding schools in one location, and then find out about finances in another, and then testing and interviewing. Like, it was just really overwhelming, and it felt like it was just hard. It was really hard. And we pushed through, and again, he got in, and he did the preparation and everything. But I was like, okay, I love the fact that he's in this school, but I want to make sure that when we're going for high school, that we are a million times more prepared, and figuring out what's the strategies that we can use to make sure that he gets into the top school of his choice. And so that's when we started. I want to say maybe he's in the beginning of 6th grade, we started really, I know it's probably kind of early for some people, but 6th grade is when we really started getting serious about, okay, what type of schools do we think that he may want to go to? And he was really focused on saying he wants to go to a boarding school. And I think this just had to do with the environment that he goes to for George Jackson. And they talk about the options, whether it's boarding, day school, Catholic school, regular public school, specialized schools. There's many options, but he was like, I want to look into that option. So we both started doing just a little bit of research and just preparing him together to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now, starting in 6th grade, to make sure that by the time you're in 8th grade and you're ready to apply to these schools, you will stand out and getting to whatever your dream school will be. And that's when I started co-designing strategies with him in terms of figuring out study techniques, making sure that he was like, let me see what's the best programs that I like. So he loves doing football. He loves STEM programs. So I went out, researched different summer programs. And last summer, I think he went to NYU engineering summer program. He loved it. I wish he would have been able to go this summer, but it's shut down. But just finding those, co-designing with him different strategies to figure out, okay, what's the best way to build up your strengths and make sure that when it's time to applying for schools, you're able to show off those skills or that hook. And so he's been doing that. We've also started doing SSAT prep, like beginning in last December or January, because we know a lot of the schools, you have to have a decent SSAT score. So we've been doing SSAT prep, purchased the test invaders for that. He's been doing interview prep with my husband and his male friends, and getting that type of comfortability, like being a little more comfortable with just interviewing, because he's really shy and quiet and awkward, I guess, like a lot of other preteens and stuff like that. So just building up his confidence in interviewing, making sure that we figure out study techniques to make sure that his grades stay at a certain level. So he averages right now like a 95, and week by week we'll kind of go back with each other and figure out what's working, what's not working. And so yeah, it's really it's on both sides, me being the supporter and helping him to find all those resources to make sure that he betters himself, and then him too, making sure that he develops himself academically, emotionally, mentally, and just we're both prepared. And so yeah, it's been an incredible journey so far. We had to go through the process of getting into Oliver Scholars, which was really competitive. And we got a little taste of what it would feel like to go into the high school process. So it was exciting. He was accepted, and now we're moving forward. So yeah, I could probably talk for a lot more, but I'll wait for right now. And right now he's in 7th grade. I'd seen somebody pop that in, but he's at the end of 7th grade, and he's heading towards 8th grade in the fall.
It's great. Sounds like you're doing a lot of the right things, Lovey. It's awesome. I'll share, I know we're going to take questions, so I see some of the questions coming in, so I think we're going to get there very shortly. I thought I would share just a few tips as sort of coming from the college admissions process and from highly selective schools to our school admissions process. A few things surprised me A lot of the concepts around fit, and really the earlier you show up and sort of start to map out what this process is going to look like for your family, the better. So I'll share those. But it's definitely not an easy process, and I feel like a lot of our schools I know have worked hard to make it a little more accessible, just for managing what are multiple Saturday commitments. We expect you to come to events on campus. The application process goes on for a little while. It's not 1 week and then you're done. It's happening over a few months. But what I found in a lot of our peer schools, not just Riverdale and Avenues or George Jackson, but folks are really there to support you in the admissions process. Like, it's much more of a personalized experience. And so almost actually in a different point of advice than I thought I was going to offer is the sooner you can sort of start to connect as you feel comfortable, especially if there's somebody on the admissions team, maybe that you feel even more connected to, that'll be great, because the goal is, our team members are going to try to work with you through the process, and make it a little bit easier to sort of break down everything you need to do and when you need to do it by. So my first sort of quick point was to start early. And I say this as a lifelong procrastinator who, in college, I got very lucky, and I won a fellowship that I think I did most of the work in the application process within like a day or two of when it was due. And then as I moved forward in life, as we all do as like adults, I sort of found like, that was really lucky, and normally it doesn't work out. And it didn't work out after that to rush that process. Forgive me, I probably have like an Amazon delivery coming through downstairs. I don't know if you can hear my buzzer. But I think that first point about starting early with the process, why that matters is because there are so many different pieces, and a lot of the pieces of our admissions processes are sequential. So typically you have to submit the application first before you're invited for the tour or the interview. We will help you reach out to the teachers of your choosing who maybe are great to write for your children and their academic and social promise for our schools, but it sort of happens within a cadence, one part connecting to the other. So it's just a really practical reason to start early. The second point, this idea of getting to know your student and getting to know yourselves, obviously we do that every day, but it's rare, other than when we're in application processes, whether we're applying for schools or jobs, that we really take that time to sort of reflect, like, what do we value? I find that that's important as an exercise to do before you go into an admissions process, because too often once you hear about schools, and many different schools who have many exciting options, you find yourself molding into what that school values and hearing what they're about and saying, oh, maybe that's us too. Whereas I think if you do some of that thinking and, sitting tabula rasa as a family, what do we value? Are we student-centered learners? Do we want to be in a smaller space? Do we want to be in a bigger school, maybe with more opportunities? Then when you start to approach and hear about the individual schools in the sessions, it helps you remember, okay, this school's maybe a little bit more aligned with what I think we're looking for and what we think is going to best support our child or our children for hopefully years to come, depending on when you're applying. And then just the third point real quick, then comes that fit piece. And so the opportunity there is, hopefully, if you've really reflected on who your child or children are, who you are as a family, what you care about, hopefully our job, and it's incumbent on us to do this in the admissions process, which includes, our glossy materials and our information sessions, and really sharing who we are honestly, even while we're going to be positive about all the things each of our campuses offer. It's important that we're making distinctions, that we're not, like, Avenues is not the best school for every grade student, just as other tremendous schools in the New York City area or some of the great boarding schools are not the best for every grade student or every grade family, and to really zone in on sort of who you are. And so that's our charge, is to be able to share that with you all and to really know who we are, what we value, what's our mission alignment. But then ask you to sort of think about that as you go through the application process, ask the clarifying questions. Maybe I'll stop there just for time's sake and let Jenna take over.
Great. Well, you all have done an awesome job. I feel like I have little to add, but I will definitely add a few thoughts. So, I think when Gina asked us to do this initially, it was before COVID hit. Obviously, that was for an in-person session initially, and we've pivoted. And I can see in your chat questions that are coming in so far, you have some questions related to how the admission process will look this year in particular. So I will speak to that a little bit in my comments. I was going to anyway, so I'll just sort of wrap it in, but then we can address it more specifically. The first thing I would say as you embark upon this admission process is that I think it can be really tempting to assume that admissions is about, particularly at these independent schools, is about gatekeeping and trying to figure out who not to let into the school. And I've very much embraced the opposite philosophy since I started in my job here. And I think I would encourage you all to do the same. And the reason for that is that I think if you can head into this process knowing that schools want you, they want your children to be in the school. And really, I believe that our role as admission officers is to open doors to you and to your families and to obviously to your children as well. And I think if you can enter this process with that in mind, it gives you a little bit more confidence as opposed to thinking it's all on the school side to be judging you. And I think to what Lovey and Dave have spoken to, there's a lot of you discovering yourselves and discovering your children in this process, but also really figuring out what the school has to offer and how that does align with the values that you are looking for. I believe that we're living in a place geographically where there are many different school options, and we're really lucky in that respect. We're not in a rural area where there are just a couple of independent school options. There are so many of them here in the New York City, Westchester, New Jersey area. And so and all of them have a lot in common, but also their own unique flavor. And so I definitely encourage you, as you embark on this process, to really stay organized. And whatever that looks like for you, whether it's a spreadsheet, a notebook, a journal, or whatever, I think it'll be really important to have a place to keep your thoughts and to keep all of the details about the process. We've worked really hard as an admission consortium to try to align deadlines and things like that, but it's certainly not always perfect. And so there is a lot to keep track of. And I would just say, going into the process, you want to just have a place where you're going to do that. I would also add, in terms of gathering impressions and your thoughts as you're getting to know schools, depending on the age of your child, if your child's Lovey's child's age, maybe your child's going to have more of a voice in the process. If you're applying to kindergarten, it's obviously going to be you doing more of the research and more of the decision making. So I just encourage you, if you're applying to middle school or upper school, your child's definitely going to want to have a say, and it'll be important to let their voice shine through in the process. Obviously, if they're a little bit younger, their voice will shine through too, but perhaps not in as much of a decision-making way. A couple of things. This year in particular, we believe as admission offices that we have to be flexible and nimble, and we're going to ask you to do the same. Our processes are going to have to evolve and shift. We don't know yet what they're going to look like. I think it's the very end of May here, and our admission process won't really get going until the fall. So I can't tell you necessarily today what the interview process will look like or how exactly standardized testing will look. Those are things that our schools are all still developing. But I think you should walk away from today's session knowing that we want to work with you, and that our whole goal, no matter what the situation, COVID or not, is to get to know you and your family. And it's on us to find ways to continue to do that. And we ask for your flexibility as we begin that. Just one other thought, I guess, in closing. or maybe 2. I do believe that the admission process, no matter what form it takes, is and will continue to be about helping parents and kids find the right schools for themselves. And I think that will not change no matter how we go about finding each other. That's the sort of the end goal. The other thing I would say is that this process of applying to our schools, as Dave noted, and as Lovey noted as well, is that it can be a time-consuming experience for you, but I promise you that you will walk away sort of understanding who you are, who your kids are, and the kind of community that you really wish to join. So I'll be quiet there because I know Chaz is going to remind me to answer questions in just a second. So I'll stop there. And Chaz, do you want to throw?
Oh, yeah. So yeah, we have around 15 minutes left in this session. So definitely that was really, really great. Thank you guys a lot for those speeches. But yeah, we definitely have some questions in the chat. I know a few of you have already answered. But yes, please, let's questions from anyone. Let's see.
You could start with, there was a general question, which I think Jenna already touched on a bit, but just in terms of anyone applying next year, given where so many of us have been impacted by COVID, but in different ways, there'll be a lot of sensitivity regardless of what changes we have to make or amendments in the admissions process. We know that, not all of your students and not all of your families have had the same opportunities you might have been planning on, a summer camp experience or more time in the classroom this spring, for example. And so I think you'll find that we'll all be working together to contextualize some of the challenges that our switch to a distance learning offering and lack of in-person maybe experiences may have on students.
I'm thinking maybe I'll jump in quickly on this research one, and then Lovey, maybe you can talk more specifically. I see there's one about your hook, and maybe you can kind of speak to how you did this research. But I'll just say quickly, I think, in doing initial research about schools, websites of the individual schools will probably be your best bet. A lot of them have put up information about what they're doing sort of right now in response to COVID, from a learning standpoint, from an admissions process standpoint, but also from sort of a serving the community standpoint. And I think that'll be interesting for you to see. But of course, dig beyond that too and sort of see the rest of the content on the websites. I think a lot of us have videos on there that hopefully will be engaging for you and your children to watch. I think you have a lot of great resources here through RISE too. And I think Gina and her team would be happy to put you in touch with current families at any of the schools that you learn about as you go through the fair today. So I think that'll be important. My school is part of an admission consortium called ISAGNI, and I know one of the things that we're planning on doing through that organization is to put sort of one-pagers on that website over the summer that'll just offer a little bit of basic information about each school so you can have it more consolidated in one place. So those are just a couple of places to look. There are also sort of more search engine things like niche.com and a couple of others that will provide information about our schools. But I do really encourage you to visit the school websites. And if you're a social media person, which I know Gina Parker Collins is and Rise is, I would definitely urge you to check out the school's Instagrams and Facebook pages as well, because I think that'll give you a sense of what's current and what's happening now.
Great. And so I'm going to do a harmless plug. I released about less than 2 hours ago an ebook and a workbook based on navigating the admissions process. And the workbook includes about 100 boarding school options, which include the percentage of students of color, average financial aid, tuition, special programs that they have, type of tours that you could attend and questions you should ask during the tours. And so what I've done, and I've found it helpful with doing this, is creating structure, basically. And I researched on boarding review, something. I can't remember what it is, but there's literally like a list, like thousands of schools on the list, and you're able to go there and see all the information as well as click on the link to the actual school. So I researched all of those schools individually to see what type of pictures they had, what programs they offered. What I know my son, he wants to for sure be at a school that has a football team. He wants to go to a school that has a makerspace program, or you're able to have a type of makerspace because he loves engineering. So literally in my template, I put, okay, I know for sure we're going to definitely apply to these schools because it has the criteria that there's X amount of students of color. So I know he won't be the only one of his kind that's there. Their average financial aid seems like it's pretty on point with their total tuition, which means that, okay, I could possibly be able to afford this. They have the programs that he's interested in, the sports that he's interested in. And I think it's just really about organizing your research and your thoughts. And it's helped me with the prep school process too, when we applied to A Better Chance, Olive Scholars, like, just figuring out, doing the research on what the criteria is, what's expected of it, and then what can we do to make sure that we're prepared for those programs. And I believe somebody asked about what a hook is, and a hook is basically like it's a specific like characteristic or trait or talent. So my son, he loves engineering, he is a football player, that's his hook. And when you are applying to admissions to school for different schools, when you're applying to different schools, you want your hook to be cleared. So you want for the school to be able to really get a sense of like who your child is as an individual person, because everybody's special, everybody has a special talent about them, and you want to be able to make sure that shines. So a hook is basically your selling point. What is it that you can do to make your child stand out from the other, who knows how many other applicants, and what are you going to do to make sure that the school sees that? So we have that in his essays. We prepped him an interview, like for interview questions, to make sure that he answers and shows like those interests. We see that in the applications that he's applied to when he did the NYU engineering program, or the football team that he's in, or the robotics club that he was in. So just making sure that your hook is basically saying who you are as an individual, who your child is as an individual and as a person. So that way the school can say, okay, I remember that child. He clearly does football, engineering. I want to pull him in. And so I can talk more about it, but feel free to ask me more questions. But I definitely have a system in place that has helped me immensely compared to the middle school process. And I'm more than willing to answer any other questions.
I think there's a question in there, Lovey, about if you can share the link to your ebook.
Yes, absolutely.
Go
ahead,
sorry.
Dave, you jump in.
I see a question about how the pandemic will affect the availability of financial aid. And, this might be an institution by institution question. I'll say that we were able to get our board just because of even our current or newly enrolled families being directly impacted by COVID. So they enrolled maybe with financial aid, but given circumstances, they maybe needed to appeal for more, or families that initially weren't receiving financial aid may now qualify. We were able to actually add what probably will end up being closer to $800,000 or $1 million to our aid budget, which was not expected. But I think you'll find schools, if they can afford to, would want to, much like they did in the recession in 2008, 2009, sort of expand their financial aid budgets and work with families, especially through the next maybe year or so before hopefully, the economy rebounds and we get back to something like what it was. I don't know, Jenna, if you want to add anything there.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I would say that in order to address sort of the immediate needs that we've had for families, we've tried to do some fundraising for that so that it wouldn't drain the financial aid budget, so that we don't have the option to offer financial aid next year. So I think we always anticipate that, our seniors will graduate and we'll have some financial aid money coming back into the budget. But as a result of COVID, we've been able to help everybody who's approached us And that's something that we've been, keeping an eye on, and we're lucky that we have others and, friends out there in the world who are able to help our financial aid budget so that we can address everybody's needs.
That's great.
I did see there was a question in there about how diverse Riverdale's staff, faculty, and student body is. We actually don't break down like the staff and faculty separately on that front. And I actually don't track the faculty diversity, but I would say that in terms of faculty and administrators and staff of color, I believe that the figure is about 35% of our faculty, and our student body is just over 40% students of color. I think when you think about diversity, we talk about it in a lot of different fronts. So I understand that today we're focused on families of color, but I think we recognize that it's important to have a diverse faculty / administrative team / staff / student body in many different areas. And so we do think about diversity. We just talked about socioeconomic diversity. That's important to us, as is geographic diversity, diversity of thought. We also talk at Riverdale about neurodiversity, which means like different ways of thinking and approaching the world, different types of family structures. Those are all things that we think and talk about when we talk about diversity at the school. I would also say that I think tied to that question, it's really important to understand what are we doing as a community that appreciates and recognizes diversity. Is it just that we have numbers, or is it that we're really building a community and making everybody feel that they belong? That's a big part of what we talk about at Riverdale. So I hope that answers that question.
I just want to interject super quick, just letting everybody know that we have around 5 minutes left. So we're going to be easing into our transition to the next session pretty soon.
Hey, question.
Go ahead, Lovey.
I would just briefly say, I think somebody asked what type of interview prep. I am a people operations and racial equity manager for my 9 to 5 at a nonprofit. And so I've been through, I don't know how many people I've interviewed, how many times. And I've learned that the best way to ace an interview is to have the knowledge that you need about that school, right? And also just be really confident in being able to sell yourself. So what I've taught my son was a STAR interview structure, which just basically helps him to assess or explain as clearly as possible what situation has happened at any given time, what he's done to solve the situation, and then basically what the solution was, or what the result was of that thing, and just being able to help him to frame any questions that he responds to, and that way just helps him as well as help me too, because I'm definitely shy and introverted as well, but just helps to kind of process his thoughts. And I know I've heard a lot of different interviews, and he's done one with the Oliver Scholars virtually, is conversational, and they have done a really good job, especially schools, with being engaging and welcoming and making the child feel comfortable. So I think it's more about just making sure that you can help your child be prepared to sell themselves. And what has helped with us is just repetition and helping him to say, these are your selling points. Make sure that when you and kind of role playing through those scenarios with him.
I'll add just briefly, as you think about the interview experience, which we often think about as either one-on-one with the student and the admissions or parent coordinator, a lot of schools do also have group style interviews. And so interviews in their sort of way and how we get to know a child, especially for kindergarten or first grade, might be like a play group, right? So they're actually interacting with other students. But in our middle grades, instead of trying to do a 15-20 minute interview with an 11 or 12-year-old, we try to do a sort of a group project where our teachers are sort of assessing, getting to know, understand how a student's working with another student. And I know a lot of other schools sort of play with a similar type model, in part to make it a little more comfortable for students, but as much as possible designed to maybe, as the student's more comfortable, we can actually get to know how they might be in our classroom? How do they engage with other students, engage with the teacher if they're working on a, short project? So I just want to broaden everyone's sort of sense of what you might think about with an interview. And I imagine and I hope one day for what we think of as the college admissions interview, that it might change in that direction too. Just there's a lot we've learned about these group interviews that are promising.
We also do group interviews, and I love them. I see there are a couple of questions there. One was an example of neurodiversity. Yeah, I mean, basically that's not everybody is a visual learner, right? Some kids are more like kinesthetic learners or auditory learners. And so basically it's just different ways of thinking, and kids process things differently. So that's really what I meant there. I see there's also some good resources in there from Brady. So Brady, thank you for that. Quickly for pointers for families prepping for kindergarten admissions. I think it's going to be a really interesting year in kindergarten admissions. I think, oftentimes when we meet kids, there's a whole thing around understanding their separation from their family and what that looks like. And I think that's going to look different this year, and we're prepared for that. So I would say quickly, as you get ready for the fall, play games with your kids, read to your kids, do puzzles with your kids, and just engage them and ask them questions about their daily experience. And I think that's the best prep you can possibly give them for the kindergarten admissions process this year or any year. I see you, Chaz. I know you're going to tell us where we're wrapping up.
Here to tell you guys that, yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but unfortunately we are out of time, and we really want to get people, moving in. So thank you guys so much for coming to our first Parent Power session, and this went super, super great. Thank you so much, Dave, Lovey, and Jenna. This was awesome. So thank you everybody who joined. So we're just going to get moving into our 5-minute break before our second Parent Power session. So
great. If anyone wants to contact us, feel free.
Definitely.
Thank you, Chaz.
Yes, of course. Thank you guys so much.